Hey, Anne! Da sind Sie ja schon. Da sind Sie
Hallo.
ja schon. Hey, hello.
Guten Abend. Stefan is here.
Hello.
Hello.
Nice to see you.
Wow,
Hey.
long time no see. Great to see you.
Hey, hello.
Yes.
Yes, Anne, I realized that I met you 25 years ago. Just 25 years.
Wow.
And we look just the same.
Yeah. The hearts are fresh. Yeah.
That's right. We met and you invited me to visit you. We went to your lovely house near the Rhine.
Yeah.
Ganz schöne Schlösser.
Yeah. Genau. Genau. Yeah. And 2010, I went with Stefan to international conferences and focusing, and there we met again. And we decided to do some workshops together in Germany and California. And since then, I learn mostly things about untangling from Stefan. Because you had him in your courses, in your retreats so often.
Oh, yes. Stefan was a good long-time assistant for us.
Yes.
Yeah. Hello.
Be
He
lovely
knows
to see you there again.
He knows everything we know, up till that point anyway. Maybe we know new things since then.
So you can make a little bit contact inside your body and maybe to your life as it is in the moment, and sensing what's already there, knowing that you have got 3 inspiring hours with most famous focusing teachers of the world. So what's in your body now, knowing this?
So between the two of us, that's 90 years worth of focusing experience.
Right.
So I guess we know a thing or two.
Well, we met each other because we were focusing teachers.
That's right.
Because I was, in 1983, I was writing letters. I wrote to her. I said, will you join me in creating a focusing newsletter? Yes, she said. And about 8 years after that, writing to each other, we met. And then when we met, we discovered something. We discovered that both of us had been thinking that there was something important to add to focusing. Something important that we heard in Gendin's teaching, but it hadn't been brought out as fully as we thought it might be. And that was the inner relationship.
It was pointed to with the words, the focusing attitude, where you were to be friendly with what came. But we found that instead of being friendly with, particularly with the critic was put to one side, or it was tried to be eradicated, controlled, rejected. And that didn't really sit right with either of us. That was one of the problems. And another problem was this whole thing of setting out what you found, which was a kind of doing something to our experience rather than being with our experience. So these 2 fundamental problems led us into looking at how can we be with our experience in a way which actually is an embodiment of what was called the focusing attitude.
Gendin would say, it's important to be friendly to what comes. But how?
Yes.
And we noticed something about language. That if you say, I'm angry, it's hard to be friendly to angry. But if you say, something in me is angry, now there's more of a possibility of a relationship with that. We called it inner relationship focusing. And we joined and began to teach together in 1992. How about if we are friendly to something in me that wants to be drunk, to drink? And that focusing brought amazing results, not just about changing that habit, but really about tapping into deep, well, treasure is what I like to call it, sides of myself that had been shoved aside, hidden, and that were part of my fuller life. So Barbara, who is amazing at theory, was taking out her notebook after every session and making notes. So I started to do it too. Anyway, that's how it all began. And pretty soon we were doing workshops in it. We called them treasure maps. Later, we changed the name of our work to Untangling, because these kinds of problems, which we each discovered we had more than one of this kind of problem. It's a kind of problem where it feels impossible for it to change.
And in some way, the way it is created, developed, grows, becomes, it is inherently impossible when you are inside the boundary. It's everything you do, say, think, and believe is just another manifestation of the same bloody thing. So it doesn't matter what you do or say or think or believe, when you're inside, it is impossible to get out. So
another way to say that is all your thoughts and beliefs about the tangle are part of the tangle. And yet there is a way to untangle.
You get bigger than the tangle. So that you contain the tangle, you can turn towards whatever is inside the tangle without being identified with whatever is inside the tangle. So you don't think, feel, act, or believe from inside a part in a tangle. You are companion to whatever is in the tangle, so that it gets the kind of relationship it needs in order for things to change.
Well, what is in the tangle? What is in the tangle? Parts. Every tangle has lots of parts. By the way, we know that what we're saying now isn't new to you.
Not entirely new to you.
You've been learning it from Sybille and Stefan as well, but we thought we'd tell you the whole story from the start so we can lead up to something that might be new. Yes, every tangle has parts, and the parts struggle with each other. Each part thinks the other one is the problem. And that's part of what a tangle is this impossible relationship between different parts. The one that wants to be free, and the one that's afraid being free will cause other people to hate you, and so on. So And there's something else in every tangle, not just parts. There's also a stoppage, which we'll say more about today. In the first presentation, we'll say a bit more about our model about where parts come from, how our model about the origin of parts is based on Gendin's philosophy. So what are parts? Are they permanent or temporary? And how can they change? And we'll take you through an exercise on parts in a tangle you may be experiencing that has to do with identifying those three types of parts: protectors, defenders, and the small one. Stoppage is the one thing in a tangle that isn't a part. What is a stoppage? And how can we be with a stoppage so that it also shifts? And we'll take you through a second exercise at that point on something in your life that feels impossible and how to be with the stoppage that is there in that impossible. Okay? A tangle is an area of your life where something is impossible. Impossible to think, or to believe, or to feel, or to do, or all of the above. Or it may also be two things that are impossible to have at the same time. Like impossible to both be myself and get along with other people. Parts came into existence. In our model, we are not born with parts. Parts are not permanent. They are formed by process. So this is a process model. And when there is an interruption in process, parts emerge from that interruption as an attempt to solve the problem. A part is something that is formed to try to solve a problem, but is itself a problem in turn. So when we look at a tangle in the life right now, we look at something that's the result of an earlier interruption, injury, or stoppage. A very common type of tangle is when there's something you are doing in a kind of out of control way, part of you says, and another part of you feels, I shouldn't do that. It's not a good idea. So my issue with drinking was an example of that.
And so that was one of my tangles, the whole thing around weight. I am no longer overweight at all.
Because of untangling.
Yeah.
But the behavior that's out of control might not be alcohol or food. It might be staying up late at night playing computer games, or it might be shopping on the internet, or it might be sending angry emails before you've thought about it. So who can say? Nobody can say from the outside, this is a tangle. It's how it feels on the inside.
It's not what you do nearly as much as how you are doing it. Like having to do it in secret, having to hide. You know, I used to hide behind the refrigerator door to eat stuff. You know, it was like, oh gosh, I've got to get that so that nobody can see that I'm now eating. I've got to hide things. There is shame, there is hiding. that is usually involved in our tangles. We're ashamed. There's a shame.
Tangles have shame involved, right? Ah, that's a part, of course, the part that feels shame in the tangle.
And the part that's shaming, saying you really shouldn't do that. That is, if anybody saw you doing that, they would just think you are so pathetic, so weak. Really, how could you?
Yes. Well, another kind of tangle is the opposite in a way. So the action, rather than being too much, is not enough. I had writer's block, meaning I really want to write, but I'm not doing it for years and years and years. But there was a part of me that didn't want to write. And it was when I could distinguish a part that doesn't want to write and be with it and listen to it, that whole thing could untangle. And so the not doing of something can also be a tangle.
Yeah, I had almost permanent procrastination where I found it almost very difficult to do almost anything. It was really very painful and difficult.
Another kind of tangle is when there's a very fierce criticizing voice in us that is always there saying what you're doing is wrong, too much, not enough, doesn't like what you think, doesn't like what you say.
And calls you names. Calls you a pathetic failure, a waste of space.
It's difficult.
Yeah, very painful.
And there are other kinds of tangles as well. So tangles originated in the stoppage. That's the interruption, when life wants to flow forward and it can't. Something's impossible at some point in the past. Maybe when you were very young, or maybe later. Tangles could come into existence at any point, but it's most likely to start in childhood.
Kind of layer. So you have one experience of stoppage, and then you have a similar one, which kind of goes on top of that one. And then you have another one, which is similar. And so you end up with layers that get more complicated because each time you have a stoppage, you also want to try and solve it. You want to try and live past it because life wants to live. Life wants to continue forward. Life wants to, you as a living being, as living process, wants to be able to go forward even when something is stuck. So there is, one of the things about tangles is there isn't over and over and over trying to solve this thing, trying to get past this stoppage. You know how you keep finding the same kind of guy that just isn't right for you? And you go, how could I keep doing this? What is going on?
Or the same kind of boss, the same kind of work situation that isn't right for you. Yeah, I'm in here again. How did I do that?
And it's because we are trying to solve the problem. That problem. So we actually seek out situations where we could solve the problem. Only when we are inside the tangle, it's just another instance of the same thing. And that adds another layer, another burdening layer of pain, of shame, of disappointment, of frustration.
In terms of what are parts, we think that one way to understand a part is that a part is a repetition. This is the part. This is a repetition of what should have worked, hoping that next time it will work, and it doesn't. And so in a way, it's the repetition itself that appears to be a part. Now, when the stoppage happened, it hurt. So, for example, one of my stoppages in my life had to do with my relationship with my father. He had PTSD from the war that he fought in. I know now, he didn't want a close contact with his little kids, feeling that he himself wasn't enough to be a good dad. But the effect on me was that he was always withdrawing, always turning away. He was kind of cold, distant, absent. And that's a stoppage. That turned out to be a stoppage for me, that movement toward my dad, where what's supposed to happen is that he moves toward me at the same time and we connect with each other. We experience a loving connection. Again and again, that would be not possible. There's the stoppage. I could find the origin of many tangles in my father's turning away. When the stoppage first happens, there is pain, emotion, anger, sadness, fear, hurt. But the organism finds that emotion too much, too hard to bear. And so the emotion gets stopped as well. The first part to form is the part that would feel the emotion if it could, but it doesn't. I would be crying, but I'm not, so there's a frozen crying, you could say.
So we have two things. We have this frozen forward energy, and then we have a frozen feeling about the frozen forward energy. We have two frozens right next to each other. The ones that would be felt if you could feel it, but for some reason are not felt, often because they are rejected and even punished by others. So you feel upset and somebody says, I'll give you something to be upset about. So that's one way they get shut down.
So that's the small one.
Or they're just overwhelming, so you shut them down for yourself. They're too much to feel, so you just don't feel them.
The small one is we believe that the small one is the first part to form in a tangle.
And that a lot of energy gets shut down right there. That a lot of forward living energy is all kind of pulled in, shut down, frozen, and there's no place to go with it. So all of that liveliness, all of that capacity to engage with the situations in your life gets shut off.
It's unavailable.
It's unavailable.
It's not gone. It's unavailable.
Nope. It's unavailable. It's kind of like put in cryogenesis. Frozen up.
Because of this frozenness, much of our ability to live has been lessened. We have less of ourselves available to meet the situations of life.
But we have to do something. we still have situations in life. And so the energy that is available tries to cope, but it's partial. It's already partial. It's already only part of how our whole being would engage. So it comes up with partial solutions. It comes up with partial strategies that can only deal with part of the situation, because part of the situation feels too dangerous. So we're going to have to go around. We're going to have to go over and under and keep away from that whole thing over there. I don't want to go anywhere near. Maybe we can go around this way or this way. But it doesn't really deal, because there is a piece of this situation that is still not getting dealt with. It's not being engaged with. And it becomes a tangle, because you go that way and it doesn't really entirely work. So you come up with another strategy from another part, and it tries going around that way. And it goes, that's not working either, guys. And then you go, oh, well, that sort of works. And it's, you go, and you wind up with this part and that part and that part and that part, all trying to deal with a situation that they can't even get near. They can't actually touch, can't engage with.
For example, in my situation with my father, I had a part that tried to solve the problem of getting my father's love by being a good student. Maybe if I always bring him my papers from school with a grade A on the top, then he will love me. Well, he liked seeing A, but what I was wanting was missing, and I wasn't even available to receive it anymore. So, and then another part of me had the strategy of trying to get what I was missing from my father from the boys at school, but I didn't have the ability to be really present as a person with them. So I would,
running around trying to kiss the boys in the playground is not quite the same thing as having a loving relationship.
The boys would complain to the teacher, Anne was trying to kiss me in kindergarten. Yes, well, so this kind of part that takes actions to try to solve the problem, even though they're not actions that will really help, is the second kind of part to form, and we call it a defender. Defenders can take action, and they are present-oriented. They're trying to take action right now.
Yeah. So, of course, they tend to be impulsive and not very concerned about the consequences of the behavior, unless it's like, am I going to be punished for this? They worry about that, but they don't care about whether you're going to get pregnant or not, really, you know. It's fun.
Or what you're going to feel like in the morning.
That too, yes.
And then the third type of part that we recognize is called a protector. And protectors come a little later than the other two part types. And they see the problems with the defender's solutions. But protectors cannot take action. They can only influence other parts by shaming, blaming, making suggestions, giving advice. And
they're really good at bribing too.
Sometimes they constrict the body.
Yeah.
Bribing, offering rewards, right?
Yep.
So the inner critic is a protector. A protector is like a back seat driver. The protector is not driving the car, but sitting in the back seat saying, "You're going too fast. You're going in the wrong direction.
We're going to crash. Don't do that. Do that. Go over there. Go over there. Stop. Go. Go. Stop." Which can be kind of overwhelming to defenders to hear that, and very confusing. And sometimes they go along with what they're told to do, and sometimes they fight it.
To work with a tangle, it's not necessary to name your parts. Sometimes we don't know what kind of part something is. But it is interesting because parts like to be treated differently depending on what type they are. Protectors are always worried. And so the easiest way to respond to a protector is to say, "Might you be worried?"
Or it seems like you're concerned about something here. Yeah. Maybe there's something you're really hoping will happen if I listen to you. Or maybe there's something you're really worried would happen if I don't listen to you and follow your advice or suggestion. So it was a big breakthrough when we could be curious about what was actually going on for a part of us that was behaving viciously or trying to shame us or trying to tell us what to do.
Protectors like being invited to explain what they're very worried about and what they're hoping for you. Whereas defenders really appreciate the relationship you have with them. The way I might approach a defender is to say, "I'm sensing what kind of contact or company it would like from me right now." I'm not phrasing it as a question directly to the defender because defenders often don't talk, but we can sense how they are and what kind of contact they would like, the same way we would sense how a dog or a cat might like us to be with it, babies. Kind of contact. Would it like me to come close? Would it like me to step back? Would it like me to be gentle and rock it, or would it like me to be very still? And my attention to the quality of relationship it needs from me is the beginning. And small ones are like defenders in that way. They also appreciate relationship. So when we first meet a small one, it might be it might be hidden. It might not even take much of a form. And so small ones also need a lot of patience. Parts are not permanent. They come into existence and then they also dissolve or melt or flow back into your wholeness. Tangles are not permanent. The things that feel like they're going to go on forever can actually change.
Yeah, really, extraordinarily, totally.
And as you know, the secret to all of it is the kind of relationship that you have with the part. You, self in presence, being with each part in the way that it really needs is what brings change. And eventually, parts aren't there anymore.
Yeah, all of that energy that was tied up in the stoppage, in the small one, and in the efforts of the parts. So everything that all your parts have been working to develop, all of the, what do you call them, the abilities, like protectors can be very good at planning. Your capacity to plan becomes just available, not just for those narrow situations that they are so worried about, but about every aspect of your life. And it becomes free, it becomes fluid, it becomes easy, and the energy is there. I have so much more energy than I did 10 years ago, 5 years ago even. I feel massively younger than I was 10 years ago. That's very cool.
We've discovered the fountain of youth.
Absolutely. Untangling. That's it.
Cures everything. No, but it's nice.
It makes a huge difference.